It's a cycle. And I can't come at you strongly enough with this is a cycle. We've been here before. We're going to go through it again. We've survived. Look, there's 8 billion people alive right now. It's survivable. It's doable. Your life is going to be a little restructured, a little less available things. And if you work with people, you'll have far more than if you sit as an island by yourself. And I don't care if it's a wartime or if it's not. Nature doesn't know that. Nature just knows, put stuff on the trees, grow stuff, put leaves on it, put gourds out, put pumpkins out, put okra or whatever out. Nature doesn't know there's a war going on. It's still going to function with or without you. And abundance is abundance. And welcome back for the second half here. Mini Ice Age Conversations live, right to you on TV, uncensored, every other Friday, 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Well, California has realized that these additives that are in our food, some of them are nasties. Now, all of these are already banned in Europe. It's just startling and astounding how much banned chemicals in food supply around the world are still allowed in the United States. Because for those of you know, I lived overseas for many a year. And what's allowed in the foods over there compared to here is just mind-bendingly numbing to try to read the packages here compared to any other packages around the world on what's the ingredients, you know, when you turn it over. Here, there's probably, I would say, triple to 3 times more ingredients in the same products that you would find on a shelf. From spaghetti sauces to boxed goods, crackers, it doesn't matter. There's 3 times more ingredients. You wonder why is so much stuff being put into our food supply? Well, California's banned these from 2027, which means they still know it's toxic, poisonous, but they're still allowed to run it in the food supply for another 2 years. So don't worry about that. Hostess Ding Dongs, the red dye number 3, propylparaben, which is sort of a wax type of thing, brominated vegetable oils, and potassium bromate. So almost all these things are in different baked goods that you'll see around in the United States. Now you go to Europe, like I say, you're not going to find any of these. But at least California's, excuse me, taken a step forward. And, you know, they were the ones that made GMO labeling and they were going back and forth with it, but the corporations pushed back so much that finally, I think it did pass. But again, it's one of those delayed things. It'll be another year or 2 before it gets on the packaging. It's just they would have to repackage for California alone, or they would have to come clean with the rest of the United States that, oh, by the way, we've been putting, and you notice how they went away from calling it genetically modified into bioengineered. So there was a tit for tat, and then they said, well, we can't just make a special box for California. So they started to label things, but notice how they changed the labeling in the words all the time so you don't catch on. Once you know genetically modified, then they go to bioengineered. And then, you know, it's going to take a minute to catch up on the lexicon, something like that. Now, for those of you fishing for information about Acapulco, this was a record-breaking amplification of a storm. Never seen before. This is a world record amplification on a storm. Never seen, never heard of this before. Now, perhaps before satellite records and before we understood pressure gauges and things, through the last several 8,000 years, I'm sure something like this happened. But in our modern era where we could measure it, it never happened before. It's a first. So it went from approximately 80 miles an hour to 165 miles an hour in less than 12 hours. Meanwhile, Fortune warns the S&P is heading below 3,000. 2 of the biggest stock market crashes happened in October 1929 and Black Monday 1987. Seasonally, we're entering the best 6-month period for gold and silver. Along with the Fed nearing the end of their rate hikes, gold is poised to skyrocket. Call the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. When you call and mention the Adapt 2030 channel, they're going to give you some great in-class service. Patriot Gold Group has the no fee for life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold or silver. And the no fee for life IRA is on qualifying rollovers. Give them a call. 888-546-7020. And now on with the video. And the area where it made landfall, they rarely get hurricanes in these areas. It's too far south already. It's outside the zone, if you will. It's not a known hurricane landing zone. Yeah, once every 50 years, they'll get a small one like a Cat 1. But not a Cat 1 going to Cat 5 in like 12 hours. So people went to bed and, you know, they woke up to this. The above picture was Acapulco, you know, because there's a huge amount of glass. That's the way they built the style, because obviously you're not worried about insulation down in southern Mexico, central Mexico. So a lot of this stuff was glass, and you know, it was built to code. But when you got 100 or 200 mile per hour gusts, it's going to break some stuff. So what you see is above, and then the storm ripped through, and what you see is below. Now, nearly every apartment building that was near the coast looks like the below. Mexican government's trying to hide the information. There's so many people missing. They didn't put any warnings out. See, that was the thing. Like, storm was coming in, and the forecast was a tropical storm. It'd be like, okay, we'll just hunker down, we'll drink some wine, we'll stay inside. But that thing amplified from the tropical storm to the Cat 1 to a Cat 5, and people were sleeping and got zero warning. So, you know, to follow Jeff Berwick, he's doing a good job on putting the information down, because they're down there in Mexico trying to get reporters in. And, you know, there's really not a lot of information coming. There's been some helicopter flyovers, and you look at the Acapulco Yacht Club, man, that thing was just ripped to shreds. Boats laying all over the place. And there's a lot of things that just, you need to take and do some information searching yourself. But you got hundreds and hundreds of buildings that looked exactly like that broken glass infrastructure. And people were in there sleeping for all those buildings. Thousands, tens of thousands of people are missing right now down there. So I can see why the Mexican government is trying to hold off on the info. It's once in a lifetime thing you're seeing. But there's a lot of that once in a lifetime amplification. See, I'm very sure that the elite understand that in addition to all the economic problems, we're coming into an amplification phase of destructive electromagnetic disturbance that is now going to really start damaging our infrastructure. Why would you fix it if you knew it was going to be damaged? So you look across the world, like a lot of infrastructure is not being fixed. Why is that? Is that they know something coming in on an inbound cycle that's going to damage infrastructure? And then we got the war going on that could damage more, and then everything's damaged at the same time, and the cycle passes, and then whoosh, and then we rebuild everything. Now look, here's another outlier. Now Ryan Maue, lifetime weather forecaster, says, I've never seen anything like this before on a model. 390 inches or 33 feet of snow in 9 days is set for Greenland. This is an astounding amount of snow, and I want to widen that out for you so you can see it. So right over southern Greenland, they're looking for 33 feet of snow in 9 days. Again, this is so far off that it's actually off the charts here, literally, in terms of how much snowfall. Now, it could be more than that, but it's pegged the chart. So they're kind of unsure because they've never had this depth and this speed of snowfall in an area before. So obviously the chart is set for the norms that we have experienced, or even it's probably like a couple deviations, like 2 standard deviations up above that. That's probably where you're at, is a 2 standard deviation on that 72 inch, but we're going to be something at like a, you know, multiple above 2 standard deviations on this storm here. And we notice that with a lot of other things, with rainfall and cloud top heights, ash heights off of volcanic eruptions. Like, it's blown past everything that was measurable. They needed to add in probably 6 to 10 on that versus a 2 standard deviation. They probably need to go 10 deviations up, and then we'll get at it. But here's another one. If you're in the UK listening, this one's no joke either. This is one of the strongest lows that will pass over that's not considered a hurricane in intensity. Although they should label it a hurricane, but because it's in the wrong season and it's in the wrong tropical latitude, it's just going to be labeled a gale. But here, November 2nd, you're going to be looking at 100+ mile/hour winds consistently for several hours blowing through the Isles there. And this will also affect France. It's going to hit parts of Ireland and southern England. So get ready for that. It's going to come out of the blue. Like all of it, they hardly ever give any warnings. So we should see things popping off. And those of you in the US, you want to protect your vegetables. Now this is a very, very, very critical time to protect your veggies, because we're coming into this. When the oil stops and the banking stops and this sort of thing hits us, it is going to be a lightning bolt. There will be no warning. You're going to wake up, or you're going to see it happen in real time, where it's just going to turn off. At that point, you were going to want to have everything growing around your house and your farm that you possibly can. So this one is not being talked about at the moment. What are they focused on? The record heat, but they're not talking about the daily high temperatures. And this will be for today, October 27th. Now look at the daily highs up around Montana and these areas. Look at that daily highs of 18 Fahrenheit. Now, as it moves further south, you get into the 40s and 30s through the wheat and corn belts. But what does it look like in terms of temperature? There's two things that you look on this chart. When you get that really heavy inversion, it looks like a rainbow in the middle there. I call it the rainbow ribbon of death because the wind speeds inside that colliding of the cold and hot air mass. A, funnel formation. B, extreme sideline winds. So all of our crops are ready to get harvested right now. Right as this front blows through our heartland of crops in the fields. Secondly, you're looking at the below normal. So and this is a degrees Celsius, not Fahrenheit. It's difficult to find the Fahrenheit charts because everybody in the world operates models on Celsius. So anyway, when you're looking at around 20 degrees Celsius, it's really about 30 Fahrenheit below the normal. So this pink blob, and you're like, well, okay, cool, it's just right there. But let's fast forward until October 30th, and Halloween's going to be a chilly one this year. Look how much that encompasses and how far down into Texas and Mexico that gets. So we're looking at 30 degree Fahrenheit below the normal temperatures, and we're still going to get below freezing. Now here in East Tennessee, we're predicted to get to 27 degrees Fahrenheit. That is a garden killer. That's below frost. That's hard freeze. So you're going to need to put out your row cover and protect your vegetables if you want to continue to have them. If the oil stops, you're going to get a little bit of notice for those who are not aware. You'll have hours to get to the supermarket, get more. You'll have some time, but I'm just curious when that happens if the petrol stations themselves will start limiting and rationing just on their own volition, like, no, we're going to stop selling it. That happened at one time. Remember when the pipeline stopped here? A couple of the gas stations are like, no, we're out of petrol. They put we're out of petrol signs on there. But then an investigation came out. They just turned off the pumps to wait for the price to rise later in the day and then open the pumps up again. They took it offline on purpose, knowing that the price would rise another 10 or 20 cents during the day, and then they turned the pumps back, the same gas from earlier in the day. So there was a fair few people complained about that, and they had their licenses revoked, and then somebody else bought the stations and they got rebought and then started operating again. But anyway, you're going to have a sliver of a window, but you want to keep your veggies going because you don't want to have to rely on supermarkets at this point. Winter vegetables, a good time to put in the kohlrabi and the kales and the cabbages and things. It's a cycle, and I can't come at you strongly enough with this is a cycle. We've been here before. We're going to go through it again. We've survived. Look, there's 8 billion people alive right now. It's survivable. It's doable. Your life is going to be a little restructured, a little less available things, and if you work with people, you'll have far more than if you sit as an island by yourself. But speaking of climatic changes and changes of cycles, I want to bring you here to Algeria. What do we see? Well, somebody built that, and obviously it was not in the middle of the sand dunes when they built it. So whatever you're seeing is a landscape around that, and I'm wondering what else is buried beneath the dunes there, probably entire cities that haven't been scanned by LiDAR. But the amount of change that we truly can see across this planet in terms of geopolitics, economy, and then this massive climate event here, show you that through time, something's been different. Now, this is the interior of it as you look from above. And who built this is the question. Was it a granary, a storage for granary? Was it for animals? Are those for animals to be in the center there? You know, what are those gaps between the interior and the exterior? Was that the grain storage and the animals on the inside? If it was, it wasn't just one person sitting out there. There was a city around that. And we start to look in these chapters of history of things coming and going. So this place is called Qasar Dra Timimon, and that's in Algeria. But we see the very same thing in New Grange in Ireland, just minus the roof. So you start to see, was there a related culture? Yeah, there could be, because going from Ireland to Northern Africa, not such a far stretch. So they're very similar in the way they're building. So, you know, imagine this was that prior. That's a lot of change from green pastures into, sand dunes next to your same observation post / granary / whatever it was used for. You're looking at the same thing, but they were built at the same time with the same conditions. You had to have green grasses and water to have a civilization to build that thing. So, I'm trying to put it into such wider context. And then you go over to China and the Tulo, which I visited when I was in Fujian province. They're built in the very same manner. So there's a couple things that come to mind when you see this. All right, well, there was a culture that had similar building techniques stretching from China to Africa to, again, Northern Europe. And what's going on with that? Protection of, storage of. Again, once you get something, when it comes into harvest season, there's a huge amount of things to buy right now. So buy extra. But if you buy extra, you're going to have to process it and store it correctly. Which brings me over here to the wonderful barn. I know I've shown you this picture once before. 1740s. That's a grain storage area as well as housing and many people to protect that. This is what it looks like a little bit further afield. Why do they protect the grains so much? And why were all those extra warehouses there to store things? Well, when you got more at a plentiful time, you stored it. Now for me, the things I've had the best storage luck with have been butternut squash, pumpkins, potatoes, sweet potatoes. They last for 6 months, more 8 months. And what we didn't use, we just cut up real small and gave it to the sheep. And then we bought more this year because they're fresh. And we saved seeds out of that. Storing in abundance is going to be a key for you moving through this. And I don't care if it's a wartime or if it's not. Nature doesn't know that. Nature just knows, put stuff on the trees, grow stuff, put leaves on it, put gourds out, put pumpkins out, put okra or whatever out. Nature doesn't know there's a war going on. It's still going to function with or without you. And abundance is abundance. And that was always one thing. People survived off the natural foods that they were able to store and process. Apples would be another one. Pears, not so much. Or peaches. You have to dry those. Now, chapters of history. I thought this was pretty interesting here. What the version of history that we're fed is this technology was at this level, and then we came here, and then we got airplanes now, and we went from hunting mastodons with spears to airplanes, and it's like a linear line, right? Linear. But this defies any of our known technologies, and quartz is on the left, so they're making quartz arrows. You know how fragile quartz is? You make one wrong move and that thing's cracked. And then this is a piece of cobalt that they also fashioned into an arrowhead on the right, the blue mineral. These things are fragile at best anyway. So to be able to get this from some 3,500 or almost 4,000 years ago as a created item, it's typical. It's almost nearly impossible to do it with today's technology to fashion these arrows. So how did they do it then? So, these cycles that we've been fed and it's called Hopewell Point. If you want to take a look, they've been getting into some new excavation points now, and they're finding these new artifacts that are down there, curved blade edges on the exotic quartz arrows, and they don't know if it was just for the royalty or what it was for. They're still trying to figure it out, and it's in Arkansas, and that dating is way wrong. They're talking about pre-Mississippian cultures of something so far back in time that they're looking at Egyptian type of time frame. So keep that in mind. So for the last couple minutes here, we've survived through history, and that's the whole point of that. Things come, things go. Climate changes, climate's stable. It's not, it is. We've moved through all of these massive cataclysms and changes, and look, there's still 8 billion of us here. You just have to learn from the past. What did they do during times of duress to be able to get themselves through? Now, what I do see as a collapse of the economy, once this collapse comes on purpose, I'm totally convinced now. They're all working together to collapse the economy. Everybody needs to reset. And you heard them, they all mostly want to go to a digital currency with a social credit score tracked into a central bank digital currency and digitized wallet that they can control you more. That's been the plan. They wanted to use China as the model for the world. So they could have a chance. I'm just saying could, possibly. I don't think it's going to happen. It's too technologically advanced for this day and age for all this to happen if we destroy everything and start to build back again. Blueprint for the Future of Money, straight from the Bank for International Settlements website, improving the old, enabling the new. I mean, enslaving you with the improving of the new, by the way. So what they want to do is start something called a unified ledger, where I will read at the bottom there, tokenizing the world's assets, declaring a digital value for all physical resources on the planet. That includes the Brazilian rainforest. That includes offshore fisheries. They'll be digitized and given a value. And then that value with that token can be invested against or start an economy with that value of it again. It will be a forest. It will be your house and my farm, your car, your labor. You're going to be a tokenized asset too on the value that you can provide for the society. Now, I was shocked when they were talking about digitizing people's labor also. And it's only going to be under the control of a central bank, not a sovereign nation, a central bank system for a world government at the level of the Bank for International Settlements. They're going to be the ones controlling the ledger to control everything on the planet. They're going to go outside and stop what you understand as sovereign central banking. Will not exist. It'll exist to facilitate transactions, but it won't exist like we do now to get a loan from this bank and the government backs it up with the FDIC if you're from the United States. And here's the scary thing. Inside the token, after they, like my farm, they'll say, all right, David, you have this many acres. You have 25 acres on your farm. We're going to digitize that and tokenize it, and your farm's worth this much. Oh, but by the way, we're going to write something in there of what you can or cannot do with your own personal asset. Well, David cannot have any cattle on his property, and if he has any cattle, then he loses his farm and it reverts back to the state. And he will have to pay a $50,000 fine. So I have no say in what they're going to tokenize or what they're going to use for the usage or non-usage. And once they do this, they're going to be rolling over the planet with satellites to make sure that you adhere to the smart contract stipulations, which you had no say in. They're just going to write it for you. And here's another thing right off their off the PDF here. Unified ledger, exchange of security tokens. I see buyer's custodian and I see seller's custodian, but I don't see individuals in there anywhere. There will be no more personal money. Everything will be owned by the government and one central governmental body for all transactions on the planet. You will own nothing. This shows you will absolutely own nothing. Not even the money that you have will be in a ledger somewhere that they can turn off at any time. You will have no cash. This is their plan. And the whole thing was that really drove it home for me was they're going to restructure the entire supply chain of the planet using this new style of programmable platforms and unified ledger digital token issuance. Because after this war, many things will be destroyed. So they have to assure that one supplier will get paid or else they're not going to send the goods over to start rebuilding a nation. So they're going to guarantee it. And this is the whole flow of it here from suppliers to buyers to banks to make sure everybody gets paid, that there's the faith there. It's in a smart contract. And the whole main thing was, it's this. So get ready. Hope you learned something from today and spread it around. We're all going to need it.